Letter, July 21, 2019. Dear M, it's been an unusual day, which is pretty normal for a guy without a job and not an awful amount of money. I woke up at about 8 a.m. in the morning. Sun was already dripping its golden fluids with the generosity of a pregnant woman. I ate breakfast, and by that I mean I had a black coffee with a little bit of oat milk, which certainly brings out the non-existent richness of cheap Nescafe flavor I got months ago on sale. Then I wisely decided it was too early to continue watching Guadagnino Suspiria. Certain movies demand to be watched at night, in an empty room, on an empty stomach, for full effect. So I did what any reasonable gentleman would do, kicked off my oversized boxers, and jumped under covers. By now my bed was pleasantly cool, thanks to our central air. I napped in and out and back in again, and that's not some weird sexual innuendo, for about 3 hours, listening to Shostakovich and dreaming about Eyes Wide Shut. When I finally decided it was time to get up and go on with my unusual employment shed, it was well past noon, and I had lost every intention to be productive in my aimless, nevertheless necessary job search. I decided to stretch and try to do more than 10 pull-ups, but I was still too sore from last night's yoga, and honestly, what's the point of doing pull-ups when you're never going to look like one of those young recruits from Postcards from London who clearly have a wonderful, God-given talent of being visually pleasing? I mean, one can only do so much with one's genetics. Ironically, I decide when I want to believe in my ultimate self and extraterrestrial heavenly powers, and that's mostly when it comes to my physical activities. And my beliefs usually manifest in complaints such as, what the fuck? Why am I less flexible than a dead horse? Or what the fuck? Why are my hips made out of cheap cement? And what the fuck? Why do I sweat like a molested kid, hearing floors crack behind his bedroom door? Not pretty, not funny. I agree. I'm sorry. Much like everything else, I fall in and out of my beliefs, like of my weird accent when I'm too buzzed to pursue my less controversial American accent, that is. Needless to say that I soon managed to rewatch 4 episodes of Schitt's Creek, after which I made up my mind. I needed to get my shit together and claim the success I was destined to achieve. So I hit the bathroom and spent 20 minutes in shower while scrolling Instagram and looking at my old photos for motivation. You know you're fucked when you seek motivation in your dark days of your dark past. But I guess everything might have its quirky appeal if you care to adjust your perspective. Old photos, younger and skinnier me. I briefly considered the idea of going for a run at Central Park before remembering that while running, I looked too much like a horny deer, scared shitless, chasing a much bigger horse. Very specific. I've clearly have not thought about this before. Thank you. Also, New York is currently experiencing a heat wave. While all I'm experiencing is desperate need for less edibles and a little more self-control. Everyone seems to be frying on the beach. My lesbian friends, my gay friends, my gender fluid, and of course my sexually boring friends too, aka straight. The rest of the world is trying to make the most out of the summer, while I willfully stew in my sweat and laziness. Speaking of sweat, I do shower. Not because I need to, but because I'm freezing. After 2 years of living in New York, I still passionately hate the idea of AC on both mental and physical levels. Oh, and what's even worse, I'm not allowed to keep my own windows open while central air silently disables my bones. My landlord says he'll fine me, and as much as I'd like to be punished because I'm a bad, bad boy, I can't exactly afford it right now. American society is divided by issues concerning racism and sexuality, but nearly everyone seems to be in agreement when it comes to maintaining subarctic temperature indoors, while the climate change seems to be in full swing outside. And let me say this, subways are simply unfriendly to tropical birds like myself. Peculiar country indeed. I get to Think Coffee at 5. They're closing at 7. Why does no one drink coffee after 7? Given the fact that I'm still looking for the job thingy, I've decided not to tip barista if my order is just below $5. The rule I break every fucking time. She smiles and says in her Eastern European accent, "Here you go, sir. Enjoy the rest of the evening." Oh well, you know what I always say? Cheap is cheap. I live $1 and promise myself to man up and not to do it again. Well, maybe except tomorrow, because I'm meeting a friend tomorrow and I don't want to be the guy who spends like $9 on a coffee and pockets $1 change. Monday it is then. On Monday, I tip nothing. I spent an hour gazing into space, incredibly revered and by far the most consuming form of art. I am alone in the backyard. Inside the coffee shop is packed with bespectacled hipsters and young, unsuccessful entrepreneurs. Young because I've almost hit 30 and everyone in their 20s seems unbearably young. Unsuccessful because what kind of loser would spend an excessively sunny Saturday in a cramped, freezing coffee shop in a not so hot part of Williamsburg instead of going to a beach? God forbid they experience what our planet does: extensive heat and unfortunate discomfort. I refuse to include myself among the coffee shop nerds. In my humble opinion, I qualify more like a reasonably sophisticated guy who's too cool for the mainstream shit like Reese or Rockaway, or even worse, the Fire fucking Island. I'm that mysterious yet charming European who's always too interested to slip your mind, but too intimidating to actually befriend. My self-esteem is under a lot of stress right now, being rejected even by TD Bank. God. So I have to dig deep into my imagination to remain a functional human. Well, almost functional. At 6:40 p.m., I toss my coffee cup into the bin. The shop is still in full buzz. These fucking millennials never quit, do they? Night is still young. I'm living that la vida loca. So I put on Vince Guadagnino's Nighthawks and start walking with the enthusiasm of Buster Keaton. I can feel someone recording me from behind. Could I be more paranoid? If I had left my stuffed backpack home, perhaps they would have enjoyed a better view of my perky and unintentionally mouth-watering ass. I am Naomi with a BDE, 100% that bitch. And dusty old Metropolitan Avenue is my Versace runway. I got legs for days, darling. I always envision smooth walk of slick jungle cat when I want to walk sexy. Still, it usually qualifies as a Buster Keaton walk. I get to the bank of East River. A furry is leaving in 10 minutes. I find a secluded spot and wait for sunset while reading lost pages of Gentlemen in Moscow. Not exactly ideal for the occasion, but I'm almost out of the internet data, so it will have to do. Sunset arrives at about 8:15. I've lost track of time. I listen to Gershwin's Rhapsody in Blue while a nutritious, bright yellow ball of butter sets behind what I imagine to be East Village. I think of Stina, who would enjoy watching it with me in silence while plotting scenes of our documentary. Did you know that some people can just shut up and stay in the moment without experiencing an insufferable need to escape into their own perception? I'm starting to sound like a pretentious old New Yorker who's now too witty for the city. Should I move to Paris for a month? I think about my favorite spots on my way back. Not favorite necessarily, more like spots I've imprinted my emotional intelligence upon. The entrance to Metropolitan G train station is one of those spots. Certainly contrary to general objection, mostly from my friends, I call it my G spot. 20-something skater guy is sitting in front of me, round glasses, cross-legged, stepping his bottom foot on a skateboard, reading the New Yorker. I love this fucking city. P.S. I wrote this whole piece without a drop of gin in my system. Would you believe it? Ever thine. Me.